Hello, Internet, and welcome back to the Story Nook. Go ahead, grab your tea, your water, your coffee, whatever it is you want to drink. And today we'll be reading The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum with pictures by W.W. Dinslow. This is a copy I got from the Internet Archive as a PDF. I cannot talk. Look at the artwork. It's pretty. Today I am drinking a sour green apple Powerade. When you shine a light under it, it looks like alien goo. That's the best I can describe it. This cover has the Scarecrow and the Tin Man on it. I am mostly reading this because Wicked came out recently at the time of me recording this, and I was like, I've never read the original Wizard of Oz. I only ever saw the movie. I saw the whatever movie has the last in it, the first one, the first Technicolor film. I saw that movie, of course, several times as a child. My father actually didn't know it was in color until he bought his first color TV with his first paycheck in the 80s. So yeah, and that's a fun fact. This copy was in the New York Public Library is what this PDF was made from, so thank you. I believe Wizard of Oz is in the public domain. I've also seen The Wiz. I saw the film of that after hearing the soundtrack. I remember hearing the Wicked soundtrack because my sister's school was singing the songs for a school performance, with songs from The Wiz as well. And I don't know if I saw the Good Times version of this movie. This is our second image. It's got the same image from the front, it's just in black and white. And I guess Bob's Mural Company, Indianapolis, was the people who printed out the book. And you'll notice I did change some of the formatting so it would better fit. So this book was originally written in 1899, or at least the copyright, that's when it was done. And copyright from the Bob's Mural Company from 1903, and then another copyright from 1903. And this is in the introduction. And it's got a cute little photo of Toto. Toe. I'm just struggling with words today. None of them sound quite right at the moment. Introduction. Folklore, legends, myth, and fairy tales have followed childhood through the ages. For every healthy youngster has a wholesome and instinctive love for stories fantastic, marvelous, and manifestly unreal. The winged fairies of Grimm and Andersen have brought more happiness to childish hearts than all other human creations. Yet, the old-time fairy tale, having served for generations, may now be classed as historical in the children's library. For the time has come for a series of newer wonder tales, in which the stereotyped genie, dwarf, and fairy are eliminated, together with all the horrible and blood-curdling incident devised by their authors to point a fearsome morale to each tale. Modern education includes morality, therefore the modern child seeks only entertainment in its wonder tales and gladly dispenses with all disagreeable incident. Having this thought in mind, the story of the wonderful Wizard of Oz was written solely to pleasure children of today. It aspires to be a modernized fairy tale in which the wonderment and joy are retained and the heartaches and nightmares are left out. Chicago, April 1900. L. Frank Baum. Toto. This Toto seems to have like a little leaf stick in its mouth. I'm not quite sure. But here's our list of chapters. So we have Chapter 1, The Cyclone. Chapter 2, The Council and the Munchkins. Chapter 3, How Dorothy Saved the Scarecrow. Chapter 4, The Road Through the Forest. Chapter 5, The Rescue of the Tin Man. Chapter 6, The Cowardly Lion. Chapter 7, The Journey of the Great Oz. Chapter 8, The Deadly Poppy Field. Chapter 9, The Queen of the Field Mice. Chapter 10, The Guardian of the Gates. Chapter 11, The Wonderful City of Oz. Chapter 12, The Search for the Wicked Witch. Chapter 13, The Rescue. Chapter 14, The Winged Monkeys. Chapter 15, The Discovery of Oz the Terrible. Chapter 16, The Magic Art of the Great Humbug. Chapter 17, How the Balloon was Launched. Chapter 18, Away to the South. Chapter 19, Attacked by the Fighting Trees. Chapter 20, The Dainty China Country. Chapter 21, The Lion becomes the king of the beast. Chapter 22, The Country of the Quadlings. Chapter 23, Glinda grants Dorothy's wish. And Chapter 24, Home Again. So the first chapter is about 7 pages, and the first chapter is going to be as far as I hope to go through today, or at least for this first recording. This book is dedicated to my good friend and comrade, my wife, L.F. Baum. And we've got 3 girls with little things. Something about the posing and the way they're drawn reminds me of Nutcrackers. Or girls in color guard. In that regard. I would like to say I do love this art here, where it opens like this. I love these kind of like manuscript kind of like art pieces in books. You don't see them a lot, and it's harder to pull off in like an ebook because formatting. Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Kansas prairies, with Uncle Henry, who was a farmer, and Aunt Em, who was the farmer's wife. Their house was small. For the lumber to build it had to be carried by a wagon many miles. Also, it's not like, there's not a thing that says, hey, this is chapter 1 at the top, so that's interesting. There were 4 walls, and a floor and a roof, which made one room, and this room contained a rusty-looking cooking stove, a cupboard for the dishes, a table, 3 or 4 chairs, and the beds. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em had a big bed in one corner, and Dorothy a little bed in another corner. AKA, they were all sharing one room. There was no garret at all, and no cellar, except a small hole dug in the ground, called a cyclone cellar, where the family can go in case of those great whirlwinds arose. Mighty enough to crush any building in its path, it was reached by a trap door in the middle of the floor, from which a ladder led down into the small dark hole. I'm curious as to what a garret is. Can I copy that and place it into... I just have to figure out what that means. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. A top floor attic room. Alright. That's what that is. There we go. Because I was curious. Curiouser and curiouser. Do. It was reached by a trapdoor in the middle of the floor, from which a ladder led down into the small dark hole. So a garret is an attic. So there's no attic and no cellar except for, like, the cyclone cellar. When Dorothy stood in the doorway and looked around, she could see nothing but the great gray prairie on every side. Not a tree nor a house broke the broad sweep of flat country, which reached the edge of the sky in all directions. The sun had baked the plowed land into a gray mass, with little cracks running through it. Even the grass was not green, for the sun had burned the tops of the long blades until they were the same gray color to be seen everywhere. Once the house had been painted, but the sun blistered the paint and the rains washed it away, and now the house was as dull and gray as everything else. When Aunt Em came there to live when she was a young pretty wife, the sun and wind had changed her too. They had taken the sparkle from her eyes and left them a sober gray. They had taken the red from her cheeks and lips, and they were gray also. She was thin and gaunt, and never smiled now. When Dorothy, who was an orphan, first came to her, Aunt Em had been so startled by the child's laughter that she would scream and press her hand upon her heart whenever Dorothy's merry voice reached her ears. And she still looked at the little girl with wonder that she could find anything to laugh at. Uncle Henry never laughed. He worked hard from morning till night and did not know what joy was. He was gray also, from his long beard to his rough boots, and he looked stern and solemn and rarely spoke. So Aunt Em came here, browsed a fresh daisy. All her hope and joy was smashed. And Dorothy's an orphan, and her Aunt Em and Uncle Henry took custody of her. We don't know from which side Dorothy is from, if she's from Em's side or Henry's side, but don't matter, she's an orphan and she lives with them. It was Toto that made Dorothy laugh and saved her from growing as gray as her other surroundings. Toto was not gray. He was a little black dog with long silky hair and small black eyes that twinkled merrily on either side of his funny wee nose. Toto played all day long, and Dorothy played with him, and loved him dearly. Today, however, they were not playing. Uncle Henry sat upon the doorstep and looked anxiously at the sky, which was even grayer than usual. Dorothy stood in the door with Toto in her arms and looked to the sky, too. Aunt Em was washing the dishes. From the far north they heard a low wail of the wind, and Uncle Henry and Dorothy could see where the long grass bowed in the winds and the waves before the coming storm. There now came a sharp whistling in the air from the south, and as they turned their eyes that way, they saw ripples in the grass, coming from that direction also. Suddenly Uncle Henry stood up. "There's a cyclone coming in," he called to his wife. "I'll go look after the stock." And then he ran toward the sheds where the cows and the horses were kept. Aunt Em dropped her work and came to the door. One glance told her of the danger close at hand. "Quick, Dorothy," she screamed. "Run for the cellar." Toto jumped out of Dorothy's arms and hid under the bed, and the girl started to get him. Aunt Em, badly frightened, threw open the trapdoor in the floor and climbed down the ladder into the small, dark hole. Dorothy caught Toto at last and started to follow her aunt. When she was halfway across the room, there came a great shriek from the wind, and the house shook so hard that she lost her footing and sat down suddenly upon the floor. A strange thing then happened. The house whirled around 2 or 3 times and rose slowly through the air. Dorothy felt as if she were going up in a balloon. The north and south winds met where the house stood and made it the exact center of the cyclone. In the middle of the cyclone, the air is generally still, but the great pressure of the wind on every side of the house raised it up higher and higher, until it was at the very top of the cyclone, and there it remained and was carried miles and miles away, as easily as you could carry a feather. It was very dark, and the wind howled horribly around her, but Dorothy found she was riding quite easily. After the first few whirls around and one other time when the house tipped badly, she felt as if she were being rocked gently like a baby in a cradle. Toto did not like it. He ran about the room, now here, now there, barking loudly. But Dorothy sat quite still on the floor and waited to see what would happen. Once Toto got too near the open trap door and fell in, and at first the little girl thought she had lost him, but soon she saw one of his ears sticking up through the hole, for the strong pressure of the air was keeping him up so that he could not fall. She crept to the hole, caught Toto by the ear, and dragged him into the room again, afterward closing the trap door so that no more accidents could happen. Hour after hour passed away, and slowly Dorothy got over her fright, but she felt quite lonely, and the wind shrieked so loudly all about her that she nearly became deaf. At first she had wondered if she would be dashed to pieces when the house fell again, but as the hours passed and nothing terrible happened, she stopped worrying and resolved to wait calmly and see what the future would bring. At last she crawled over the swaying floor to her bed and laid down upon it, and Toto followed and laid down beside her. In spite of the swaying of the house and the wailing of the wind, Dorothy soon closed her eyes and fell fast asleep. Because when you were in danger and you can't do nothing, might as well take a nap. I get it, Dorothy. I understand your feelings. We once again have this lovely image of Toto right here. Is this the next chapter? Yeah, Council of the Munchkins. So this is how you know it's a new chapter. So this is the second chapter. And this is the end of the first chapter. So we'll end this here. And I hope y'all enjoyed me slipping into my southern accent. Just letting it take over and be a little bit stronger today. So let me know what you think of the first chapter of The Wizard of Oz. It's kind of fun because I've never actually read it before. So it's kind of enjoyable for me. So yeah, that was the first chapter. And I'll try to read at least one chapter a day and post it to the Story Nook channel. For those who see these with the speed paints, hi, welcome. I read this probably 7 months ago because I'm behind on editing speed paints. But let me know if there's any other stories y'all want me to read, all that good stuff. And look, we did it. We read the first whole chapter and it only took a little over 16 minutes. So all y'all stay safe, stay healthy, all that good jazz. Bye-bye.